Chamomile tea. I don't know how to say chamomile. 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 So it's the same. Honestly, it smells like hamster food. Before I started doing music full-time, there was a whole year in my life when I was unemployed with zero income. It was a time when after graduating from college, I had absolutely no idea what to do with my life. And I sort of regretted going to film school because honestly, I didn't know what to do with my degree. That's not to say that I think I wasted my time in college. I learned a lot of stuff like French New Wave, Soviet montage, Russians, French New Wave. Now honestly, I enjoyed the academic study of film. But because I had trouble working with other people, the actual act of making a film with people you've known for only about a semester didn't really appeal to me. So in short, by the time I was in my junior year, I figured that I was in the wrong course. However, there's one aspect of filmmaking that I actually like, and that's writing. And those days when I was figuring out what to do with my life, I had this silly idea that I wanted to be a writer. I figured that if I had a job in writing, I would be able to use my degree in film. It wouldn't be put to waste, and also I wouldn't have to deal with working with lots of other people. I mean, maybe I still would have to deal with that, but most of the time maybe I would just be alone in my room and I could just write in peace. Simple. But here's the thing. Like with all creative pursuits, in order to make a job out of art, you would actually have to be good. And people would have to recognize that you're good. And in order to prove to them that you're good, you would actually have to make something good. So in other words, I had to write. I don't remember how the idea came about exactly. I just remember looking at this website for this big local film festival. It's been around for decades and it's also kind of like an institution now. And I was just in time for their script submissions. If I remember correctly, I think the deadline was in about a month. So I had something like 4 weeks to think of an idea, make sure it's good, and write it down. And yes, this is my first time trying to submit a script. I think I told myself, hey, I have a degree in this subject, I studied it, and I can do it. And nothing's going to happen in my life if I don't try. So I decided to stop feeling sorry for myself and stop pitying myself for being jobless and actually get to work. So that's what I did every day for 4 weeks. I would wake up really early in the morning and sit down in front of my laptop and write for 5 hours straight. I didn't even know if what I was making was any good. And I didn't even know if it was worth my efforts. I didn't know if I could actually turn this into a job. But I delayed my judgment and committed. Because I wouldn't know the answers to these questions if I didn't try. If you're curious about the story I made, I'm actually too embarrassed to tell you, but in summary, it's kind of like Narnia meets Cat in the Hat meets Stranger Things meets Hayao Miyazaki meets Where the Wild Things Are, but it's also kind of violent. And so about a month later, I finally finished it. It was done, and the only thing I had to do was go to their office and submit it. And then I waited. I don't know how long I waited, but maybe like a few months, a few weeks. And finally, one day I woke up to this email which says that I had been shortlisted. Wow. So a couple of months later, I found myself being interviewed by the country's brightest minds in film and television. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Sitting there, being grilled, trying to convince people that this violent but heartwarming movie about cats is worth funding. And you know what happened? I didn't get accepted. I don't know if it's because my writing wasn't good enough. Maybe it was my first try. Or maybe they just didn't have the money to produce this ambitious fantasy film written by an unemployed but ambitious 20-something. But you know what? I don't remember feeling bad about it. Maybe it's also because about the same time, my band was already gaining a lot of attention, which eventually became my job. But I think it's mostly because I wasn't convinced that the time I spent writing my script was time wasted. Because that experience taught me a lot of things. For one, it taught me discipline. It taught me that in order to accomplish something, you have to be willing to sit down and actually do the work. It taught me that things don't happen overnight. You have to commit to something, even if it takes a long time. You have to trust that you'll eventually finish it, even if the ending is nowhere in sight. And most importantly, it taught me to have faith and take that first step. Because most of the time, we're too afraid to even do that. I mean, I know I was. And yes, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but by trying, I've grown so much as a person. It made me realize that I can actually do so much more. And that's not really a failure now, is it? How about you? Have you ever done something difficult in your life and you failed? And if so, how has that experience affected you? Were you able to take anything from that experience? Or are you someone who's considering taking their chances and you're about to do something difficult? If you are, maybe it would help for you to know this. Failures don't count. It's what you do with them that does. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, then great. If you didn't, I don't know what to do about that. Bye-bye.